Right, well then let's call the meeting to order, and how about if Tammy leads us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Number 3, action item, election of governing board president for 2022 calendar year. Do we have?
So, Ms. Boggs, member of the governing board, as a reminder, we do an organizational meeting every January, first meeting of January, in which the governing board elects a president. You are not eligible to be president 2 years in a row. If you remember, a few years back, we amended the policy that it is just a general election. So Mr. Watkins is not eligible to be president next year, but any of the other members are. If it requires, obviously, a nomination, discussion, and then action item. Secondary after that will be the election of the clerk. And then you'll see in the rest of the agenda items that it's just actions that we have to take every single year in order to run the organization, whether it be giving me the ability to select a hearing officer, I mean a number of different items. But it begins with the election of the governing board president by you as a membership.
All right.
Okay.
This may be a little unusual, but I'm going to go ahead. I would like to nominate myself, David Lane, to be the next president.
We need a second?
So how does this work? Do you get all nominations out there and then a motion is made, or?
So it can work a number of different ways. Mr. Lane has already made a motion, so it would require a second and then a discussion and then either an approval or not. In some situations, you may be able to have a discussion about the different roles and responsibilities and then have a single action that would follow after that. But you wouldn't necessarily have a motion that takes into consideration all nominees. The motion itself would be for a specific nominee. The hope would be that there would be some discussion that would lead to that motion.
Okay.
So we need to call for a second.
In order to take action on the motion that was presented by Mr. Lane, there needs to be a second, then a discussion. After the discussion, then a vote. If there isn't a second on the motion, then there is no action item, the motion fails, and then the continuation of discussion would ensue.
Okay. All right, so then I need to ask for a second.
I'll second.
Okay. Then a discussion?
Correct.
Any discussion?
Okay, so for my benefit, can we review what the role of president of the school, of the governing board does? Just because I'm new.
No, that's fair, yeah. So the primary role and responsibility of the governing board president is to work with the superintendent to set the agenda. Outside of that, he or she typically doesn't have any more role or responsibility than any of the other board members. He or she oftentimes, though, becomes the conduit to the school district, so meaning I spend more time talking with Mr. Watkins than I do Mr. Fleetham, not because I like one better than the other, but Mr. Watkins and I talk about the agenda. We set the agenda if there are issues that are presented. I did the same thing when Mr. Lane was president. I did the same thing. So that's a little bit different, but that's just in order to help the organization function. Really, the primary role and responsibility is the board president sets the agenda in concert with the superintendent and then runs the governing board meetings.
Okay, and then.
Now, any board member can
Correct.
put items on the agenda. That's not a.
Correct.
The president doesn't have the power to say that, no, we're not going to put that on the agenda.
Okay.
Correct.
And then again, just for my understanding, clerk, is that the same as secretary?
Yes, it is. He or she then will also step in for the president if they're not available to run the meeting or to set the agenda.
But that would be the role Shelley is doing?
Correct, exactly.
Okay. Or Ms. Boggs, sorry.
Correct.
My answer to Shelley.
Right.
Okay.
So there's been a motion, a second, and then
Right.
discussion.
Discussion, right. Any other?
I'm just curious if there's anyone else that's even interested in doing this role.
So there may very well be, I don't know. I guess one way you could go about it is that you know, on the motion of the second is for Mr. Lane to be board president. I think to have a discussion in relationship to whether others are interested probably would not be appropriate.
Okay.
What would be appropriate potentially to get to that is to not have the motion pass, have a discussion amongst you about who might be interested, and then potentially if Mr. Lane is the one who is the most interested, the most logical for you all, then a second motion to have Mr. Lane be the board president could ensue after the discussion.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Second motion?
So if this motion fails, and that
yeah.
there's a discussion then about who's
Yeah,
going to be the board
okay.
president, and maybe the realization is that you are the best candidate, then there could be a second motion for you as the board president.
I see.
So unless there's any other discussion, I guess I would call for the vote and see, we'll go from there.
Okay. Then I will call for a vote. Fleedham,
Aye.
Covington,
Aye.
Luke,
Aye.
Lane,
Aye.
Art,
Aye.
Hobson,
Aye.
Watkins, Boggs, aye. Okay, motion carries.
So then, would you like to finish the organizational
I-
meeting?
I think that would be
Yeah,
appropriate.
and
Want
then
me to
Mr. Lane
finish
will
it?
pick up
Okay.
the.
Okay.
Next is for the
Well,
clerk.
okay, election for governing board clerk for 2022 calendar year.
Point of order, Dr. Wilson?
Yes?
Board policy BDA, once the new president is elected,
Then he takes
Takes
over.
over?
takes over.
All
All
right,
right.
back to
Onward and
Mr.
upward,
Lane.
all right. Thank you. So the next item of business is election of the governing board clerk for 2022 calendar year. We're looking for motions.
I'd like to nominate Ms. Boggs.
Well,
I second.
is Mrs. Boggs willing to continue in that role?
Absolutely. I've been doing it for a while.
I
I
think
think I might be pretty good at it.
What's this, your third time?
Yeah. Yes, it's fine. Yeah, I'm good with doing that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I believe you have a motion and a second.
We do. Any discussion from anyone?
I call for the question.
Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for a vote. Mrs. Boggs, would you like to conduct your vote?
Sure. Fleedham,
Aye.
Covington,
Aye.
Luke,
Aye.
Lane,
Aye.
Hart,
Aye.
Hobson,
Okay, aye.
and Boggs, I accept, and I'm an aye.
I'll be an aye also.
Didn't I call you?
No.
I didn't? Oh, Lane. Sorry.
Aye. All right, that brings us to item C, approval of the superintendent or designee to sign or negotiate the following funding request, intergovernmental agreements, all clinical site agreements, all RFP requests to take to board for final approval, leases, all other official legal documents which require the signature of the Chief Executive Officer of East Valley Institute Technology District Number 401 for the 2022 calendar year through and including the date on which the first meeting of the governing board is held in 2023 pursuant to ARS 15321 and ARS 15341. So that's an action item. We'll need a
President, may I make a
motion.
motion?
Okay,
I
we
would
have a
like to
motion.
motion that we combine items C through M, and with the ability to discuss
Well,
any
that's
item
probably
on there
true.
that you would like to discuss.
I'll second that motion.
So so we're going to restate the motion. We're asking for a motion for items C through M is the last one? Or,
No, there's one after that, but
let me look here.
Yes, C through M, yes.
C through M. Mr. Covington, are you making that motion?
Yes, sir, and we can discuss any item in there you wish to
And
discuss.
we need a second, though.
I second it.
I'll second.
Okay.
Boy, I've got 3 seconds.
I think Mr. Hart was first. Covington made the motion for C through M, and Mr. Hart seconded. All right, any discussion or questions or clarifications needed?
Just the reason for putting them all together is this is done annually. Basically,
Uh-oh,
there
there's
are a
Lamar.
few changes,
Mr.
but anything to be discussed.
I think I'm in.
Mr. Watkins,
there
we
you
can
are.
see you and hear
Hey,
you.
we can see you too.
Okay. How far along are we in the meeting?
We're
done.
We're on the last item of the organizational meeting, and we have a motion and a second for items C through M.
We've already got a president and a clerk.
That is correct.
Mr. Lane is the president, and Ms. Boggs is our secretary. Continuing on. Clerk, excuse me.
Mrs. Norris is the board
I wanted
secretary.
Shelley Boggs as president. I wanted to nominate.
I'm going to stay clerk.
It's too late. We're at the end now, so.
We are.
Well, we have discussion for item C through M, and if we have none, we'll proceed to a vote. Mrs.
All right. I might be able to see the Alabama game yet.
There's an advantage to
chance
staying
of
home.
Some people think it's a Georgia game, by the way. just so you know. And if you're going to give points, I want to get in on that.
Mrs. Boggs?
Okay. Fleetum,
Aye.
Covington,
Aye.
Luke. Aye. Lane,
Aye.
Boggs is an aye. Hart,
Aye.
Hobson,
Aye.
and Watkins.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, so that concludes our organizational meeting.
Item 4, I move a motion for item 4, adjournment.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Who was that?
Luke. Is Luke?
Okay. And
Can we do an all in favor?
let's do a acclamation vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned.
Woo-hoo.
For how long?
For a moment, until I can find the first page of the next meeting. Okay, we'd like to call to order the regular board meeting for Monday, January 10th, 2022 for East Valley Institute of Technology. I think it'd be redundant to say the pledge again, so we're going to move on to item number 3. And that is approval of the regular meeting minutes of our last meeting held December 13th, or actually, the meeting held December 13th, 2021.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to combine 3A and B as one motion.
Well, has everyone been in attendance of both meetings?
Oh, that's a good question.
I think we should keep those separate.
Excellent point. We'll just do A. I'll
Okay.
make the motion for A
So,
only.
are you making a motion for A?
Yes, sir.
I'll second. Fleetum will second.
All righty. Any discussion or corrections, deletions? Okay, we'll call for a vote. Mrs. Boggs?
Fleetum,
Aye.
Covington,
Aye.
Luke. Aye. Lane,
Aye.
Boggs is an aye. Hart,
Abstain.
Hobson,
Aye.
Watkins.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay.
Next.
Item 3B, special meeting held December 16, 2021.
I'll move that we accept special meeting minutes from December 16th, 2021.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Boggs, would you conduct the vote?
Fleetum,
Aye.
Covington,
Aye.
Luke. Aye. Lane,
Aye.
Boggs is an aye. Hart,
Aye.
Hobson,
Aye.
and Watkins.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
All right, thank you. Item 4 is call to the public. Have we received any requests?
No, sir.
Okay, moving right along to consent agenda, I would like to entertain a motion for items A through
K.
H. Actually, no, it goes on to I. Let me see, let me make sure we get this right.
K. It goes to K.
To K, so A through K, we're looking for a motion, or if anyone would like to remove one of those for separate consideration, we can do that.
I would like to move that we accept the consent agenda items A through K.
I'll second.
Do we have any discussion needed? Having none, Mrs. Boggs, would you conduct the vote, please?
Fleetum,
Aye.
Covington,
Aye.
Luke,
Aye.
Lane,
Aye.
Boggs is an aye, Hart,
Aye.
Hobson,
Aye.
and Watkins.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay, item 6A is personnel agenda.
Mr. President, I'd like to move that we combine A and B together as one motion, the hire for personnel.
Yeah, being there's not very many candidates, I'm good with that. So your motion is combining A and B.
I'll second.
Any discussion of the personnel agendas? Hearing none, Mrs. Boggs, would you conduct the vote?
Fleetum,
Aye.
Covington,
Aye.
Luke,
Aye.
Lane,
Aye.
Boggs is an aye, Hart,
Aye.
Hobson,
Aye.
and Watkins.
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to item 8A,
7.
7A.
7A. Boy, I skipped right over. Thank you for watching. Jumped right over. Oh, information. Policy revision first read. Okay. So, Mr. Kelbo, are you prepared, going to give us that first read or a rundown of that item?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Lane. We discovered that the way we set up the medical leave bank was you had to make withdrawals in full-day increments, and that wasn't really meeting the needs of our employees because some people needed, treatment or physical therapy on less than full-day basis. And the only change is that they can make withdrawals from the bank in hourly increments instead of full-day increments, which I think is more consistent with the FMLA intermittent leave policy, a reasonable accommodation under the ADA, and our regular sick leave policy, which doesn't require full-day increments. So that's the only change, and we think it's in the best interest of the employees.
I think that worked for the people to get paid hourly, too. A lot better.
Yes.
It's a good improvement.
Thank you. So that's a first read. We will take action at our next meeting. Next item is discussion of the results of the joint meeting between EVIT and Westmech. Dr. Wilson, looks like you're up to lead that discussion or launch it or whatever.
Yes, I will
you wanna
launch it, Mr. President, members of the governing board. I appreciated Ms. Boggs, Ms. Luke, and Mr. Lane for participating. A few the board members last week, there was kind of a joint conversation held between the two governing boards. And I would actually like to defer to Ms. Boggs, Mr. Lane, or Ms. Luke to kind of give their thoughts on that meeting, simply because I was just more of a witness than a participant. So I'd like to defer to one of you, if you wouldn't mind, just to kind of update the others.
Did you guys, oh, sorry, I'll have to start talking. Did you guys happen to look through that, the discussion?
Yes.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
You did? Okay, so
Thank you.
I-
Thank you, by the way. Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks for going.
Is there anything you'd like to share or question us about or
Yeah, if you read that,
concerns?
was there anything that stood out that you wanted to talk about?
Since I haven't seen anything, I'd just like a quick overview of. Go ahead and borrow them. Okay. Okay. Never mind. I got one. What was your feelings when you got out of this meeting?
Well, I think it was a good initial outing. Just, it's kind of an unprecedented exercise.
I don't know that we came to any definitive conclusions or otherwise, but we've met at the fence and shook hands. We'll see where it goes from here. Mrs. Luke, you had some discussions.
Yeah, I kind of felt like the overwhelming takeaway is that there is definite interest in collaboration. I think that the details still need to be worked out and what that's going to look like moving forward. But the feeling that I got from the discussion is that there is interest in pursuing a more structured relationship, as many of our interests are collaborative, you know,
They align.
They align.
Right.
Yeah, is that what you?
Oh, yes, for sure. Yep. I think it started a good relationship, you know.
And I'd like to compliment the three of you. I thought that the three of you represented your other colleagues extremely well in terms of your knowledge of the topics and as well as your participation. So it made our jobs as the employees pretty easy, having the three of you kind of navigating that. So very much appreciate that. The way I remember it being left is that each side was going to go back and kind of talk to their respective colleagues, and then I would work with the superintendent from Westmech or potentially the board president. We'll reach out to the board president and see if there are future discussions that can occur, and maybe we bring in a larger group to see if we can't really kind of nail down some of those collaboration areas. But I thought you guys did a really nice job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought it was a great thing. It's new, it's been unprecedented, and I think it's the right thing to do. So anybody else have anything to add? Or?
And I realize this wasn't quite the point of it, but I'm wondering if you all have a sense that this is, how do I say this carefully, that this is something that ASBA members are going to react against. You know what I mean? This is these are two districts that are different from most school districts, and are other school districts who are ASBA members going to regard this as threatening and react. And what does that mean? And there was a little bit in the discussions where there seemed to be some awareness of that, but it clearly was not the point. But
well, in my opinion, if ASBA feels threatened or intimidated by our having a collaborative discussion, then they have a guilty conscience about what they're doing.
I 100% agree with that statement, Mr. Lane, 100%.
So as members, we're of ASBA, we're not in any way, or should we be discouraged from collaboration between districts.
Mr. Hobson, I think that one of the points that was made there is that ASBA fills a niche for all school districts across the state, where CTEDs might have some different needs that are more aligned with each other, and so there could be more specialization or more targeted decisions made in a collaborative effort rather than relying on a very broad governing body or advisement body to dial in some of those decisions. So,
well, I understand. I just want us to be alert to the fact that, and our president has put his finger on it, that ASBA is a big creature, and they may regard this collaborative effort, which I agree is not their business, and they shouldn't be opposing it, but might be regarded as threatening. Just and I'm not a great fan of ASBA. Don't get me wrong.
I'd like to make a point. ASBA is an association. They're not a governing board.
oh,
They
yes.
don't govern anything.
Yes.
They're not part of the state government. They're not part of the federal government. They're an association that people choose to become a member of, just like anything else. You may become a trade association.
Yeah.
One of their things that they use to promote is they write policy, and those are their policies that certain people adopt, whether or not a school district or individual schools adopt ASBA's recommended policy is completely on theirs, and they're not governed one way or the other by ASBA. So,
Mr. Freedom, I'm aware of that, but I also know, for example, that superintendents in this state are hired generally off of recommendations from ASBA. You don't typically find superintendents who haven't been kind of vetted by ASBA. So there's just, the ASBA is a big organization, and they just have lots of. This is getting off the topic. I just want us to be alert to that, and I agree with you. I understand it's not really a governmental entity, but they do have power, and they can be problematic. So we should just be alert to that. And by the way, thank you guys. I read your comments and questions, and you guys did a great job representing the board and the interest in that kind of collaborative involvement. I think it's a great step forward.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to perhaps bringing Pima JTED into the same discussion.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I agree.
I think that, we, between those three districts, probably represent close to 40 to maybe even 50% of the CTED volume in the state. 60. Okay, so upcoming, we have the CTED consortia, legislative priorities.
Mr. President, members of
what we need to do there.
Nothing, it's just informational for you. As a reminder, the East Valley Institute of Technology is a member of the CTED Consortia, which is a group of all of the CTEDs across the state of Arizona, all 14 of us. Each year, that group comes up with items that they wish to be pushed through the legislation, worked through the legislature. You'll see that on the backup, there's 5 different items that group has asked its lobbying firm, which is Tri-Advocates, to work to potentially have some opportunity to have some changes in the current legislation. The transportation, as you can see, college career readiness seal, articulation with the community colleges, adult tuition at CTEDs, and the associate's degree for CTEDs. As a reminder, number 5 on that is the bill that we're working with Ms. Udall on, and was introduced into session. And we're hopeful that all 5 of those are talking points that allow us to have a better presence down at the legislature with our representatives regarding the good work that we do as CTEDs across the state of Arizona. So it's just more informational that you have an understanding of what the consortia's lobbyists will be working on and towards. Our lobbyist, Megan, is focusing on item number 5 specifically because that's a heavy lift, and her energy and time is best used in that area. So I just wanted you guys to be aware of what the CTED legislative priorities are.
Could you, number 2, where does that seal go? Does that go on their high school diploma?
Yeah, it is, and it's not required. Districts can opt in or opt out of it if they choose to, and the premise behind it is that more ways for CTE to be valid and validated on a high school diploma. So yes, it's a seal that will go on their diploma.
I like that.
yes.
What's transportation at normal level? I mean,
So the way it works in many of our partnering and many other CTEDs is that the route miles that are calculated for districts to transport to centralized campuses are funded at field trip rate, which is a lesser rate than daily route mileage. So the request is that, the argument is that we're not field trips. Sending kids here isn't a field trip. We're an actual school, and that's a benefit to students. So fund the transportation commensurate to the funding of sending somebody to a school, not on a field trip.
All righty. Any further discussion?
I'd like to thank everybody for going and representing us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next item is D, potential legislation from other educational institutions across Valley and state.
So, Mr. President, members of the governing board, I think it's important that you begin understanding or have an understanding of potential legislation that may exist. We've not seen it yet, but we've heard rumblings of it. And the rumblings of it are legislation that would allow schools, whether it be charter and or public district schools, to offer CTE programming on their campuses at the rate of a double-blocked, centralized program level without having to join the CTED. So as an example, a school district, one of our partnering charter schools could potentially open a culinary program on their campus and run it for 2.5 hours a day and capture a 0.75 funding from the state and no longer need the services of EVIT or Westmech or Pima JTED or any others. Compounding that is that it would potentially allow that same variable to occur in any of our partnering districts. So again, you may have school district Y that has a culinary program that instead of busing students to EVIT for culinary, may choose to bus their students within district to a culinary program and begin capturing the 0.75 and centralized campusing their own programs within the boundaries of their own district. That potentially has a huge ramification, not only in our opinion, my opinion, biased alert, on the outcomes, because I believe what we do really, really well.
We specialize.
That's what we do. We don't do AP, we don't do IB, we do CTE, and I think we do it well. So I think when you begin opening the opportunity for the centralized programming to be replicated either in charters or district public schools, I think you potentially water down the value that CTE can offer a student in their learning opportunity. So that's the first. The second is I think it also opens the door for districts, schools to begin wanting to offer longer CTE courses, largely because it generates a larger revenue. And again, when money's driving the equation, oftentimes outcomes don't follow. And third, then I think we potentially look at our structure and say, if we have partnering districts that choose to begin centralizing programs within their district in order to capture the 0.75, or we have charter schools within our CTED that potentially capture the centralized programming of double blocking at 0.75, then where does that leave us as an organization?
Yeah, that will dissolve us, and ALA is building a CTE program.
Correct. You see right by our Power Road campus,
Right by the Power
ALA
Road.
is building a comprehensive high school specializing in CTE, and they're advertising cosmetology teachers, they're advertising welding teachers, they're advertising
Aviation.
engineering.
Yeah.
And that isn't because they want, my opinion, that's not because they want satellite funding. In fact, they're not getting satellite funding right now because they haven't joined our CTED, even though we've asked. Only thing they're getting right now is Perkins funding, the federal funding. So they would not be building that institution without there being some thought given to how can that generate revenue in a way that pays for that. So we've not seen the legislation, and again, I hope I'm wrong, because Lord knows I'm wrong sometimes, a lot of times, but I wanted you to begin hearing about it, right? Because when the legislation comes out, it may be an interesting conversation we have in the future, and I didn't want that to be the first time you hear of it. I wanted you to begin thinking about it before potentially we have a deeper discussion about it. Does that make sense?
It does.
Well, isn't one of the problems, that the reason we developed EVIT, or it was, is because there weren't that many students at each of the ascending high schools that wanted to do something, and the equipment was very expensive. And so we developed coming to EVIT so we could have all the equipment for them, and the ascending schools wouldn't have that extra expense.
So correct. I mean, part of the rationale for CTEDs is to maximize the return on investment of taxpayer dollars. And so instead of having every single school district that we're partnering with have the same programs, we centralize those and actually fund them better so that the students can have deeper understanding with better equipment. So that's the premise behind it. What this is essentially saying potentially is that no longer would carry the same narrative, that sending districts could potentially have access to the same dollars and have a deeper experience with a smaller population on their home district or their home campus versus the centralizing that we have here.
The leadership of ALA is pushing this bill. So it's about their charter school, it's about their CTED, them, that's it. But it will impact us here. But
Because
they're
I-
the
and-
ones pushing it.
And you would know better, you know better than I do. I think part of the reason why part of the reason why it encompasses all districts is because I'm not so sure it can get through the legislature if it's just purely a charter
They
only.
can't. Yep.
So it needs to wrap itself around all districts.
Yep.
All learning, and so therefore it opens the door for potentially the current partnerships we have to potentially look different.
And we all know that some of the district schools push more of the university than CTE, and so they're not going to put the effort and the, what we do here in their school district. I
Right.
just know it. I know it for a fact.
Well, there's such a need for CTE instruction. I think there's, with our satellites, if we were trying to, I know most about auto programs. We don't have the capacity to even touch the number of kids out there and the number of the kids, for instance, I would say a majority of the kids that are in my program at Mesa High are not eligible to come to EVIT for whatever reason. Their
Right.
grades, or they don't have enough credits, so they're not going to be able to graduate if they do a block schedule. And I think that encompasses a lot, but at the same time, those kids need to have that experience too.
They do, and I think that, part of the thing I think we're talking about internally, and we hope to come to you in the springtime with a deeper discussion on this as well. I think some of the barriers of preventing students from coming here that we put in place aren't student-centered. We talk all the time, or at least I do, about we change lives by loving our students and serving our communities. We put barriers around certain kids to not come here that isn't very loving, and I think we can do better. Conversely, I think there needs to be a much deeper, honest conversation with some of our sending districts as well. Because some of those students that are sitting there at 17 years old that have 5 credits and are told they can't come here, this is probably exactly where they should come. Because the idea that at 17 years old you're going to get 14 more credits and graduate, not going to happen. So let's work with that student and find a pathway to get him or her here and get them a GED and get them an industry certification. And if we're successful, potentially launch them into the opportunity to earn an associate's. But there's some deeper conversations we have
Or
to have with our
even a
parents.
GED.
Well, that's, start with the GED. We'll get it here. So there's some deeper conversations. So you're right. I think all students deserve the opportunities. I think we at EVIT put some barriers up. I think some of our sending district put barriers up. But to Ms. Boggs' point, I think that what we do here, this is what we specialize in. And there are good programs across the whole of the CTED. I had the privilege and pleasure of monitoring all of them. They're very good. Some of them. Some of them are. Just like we have some good ones and not so good ones. But our focus is CTE, not as an offshoot to everything else that is happening in the organization. And to Ms. Boggs' point, I just think it will water down in many of our districts the opportunity for students to have quality CTE programming because individuals, districts, charters will want more revenue, more
They'll
funding.
just want the money. It'll be about the money. And
So,
I don't know how our school would have even the capacity to even undertake more than we do already.
and you may not, but
There's no way.
you may
We
not.
have enough place for everybody to sit as it is.
Yet.
But-
Yet.
But
I mean,
some
that could
superintendents won't care about that. They will be focused on the money that it can bring to the district.
And how many more students can you put in at now, not a 0.25, but a 0.75? And so my point is this isn't the time for it. I just didn't want you guys to get caught off guard if a week from now or 2 weeks from now, we're sitting here and there is a bill that's dropped that has some of this language in it. I at least wanted to give you a context that will allow us to have a deeper discussion, and should this be a reality, I just wanted you to be aware of it.
I just, look at the money alone that they're gonna have to go out there and tax the people to get that extra income.
So they potentially, and that's one of the things that we've looked at, because individuals,
They'd have to go for bonds to
Well, they
even
will.
begin to do that.
they will,
And they'll use CTE as the
the leverage
carrot,
point.
yep.
But at the same time, one of the things that we keep hearing over and over is that the state of Arizona right now has more money in it than it's had in quite some time. And so, the argument of, to Mr. Lane's point, and I think it's right, that, choice, all students deserve the opportunity, shouldn't be driven by taxpayers. Is there enough funding in the general revenue to support something like this so that it isn't going back to tax bases?
They're also trying to kill us.
Yes.
Well, we're not going anywhere, Mr. Covington. I
I
just
hope
wanted you to
not.
be aware of it.
I hope not.
No, we have a clear mission and audience, and
No.
we're completely more relevant than a lot of other institutions.
Completely. And like I said, there will be solutions we will provide you, or options that you all can employ if you choose to. So I'm not worried about what the future looks like for us, truthfully. I am worried about the outcomes that would be provided to students should something like this pass, because I think it does begin to get watered down, whether, not everywhere, but in some places. And I think that is the return of investment of taxpayer dollars for that, I think is not fair or not good. But I'm not worried about us. So we'll talk more about it should that become a reality. I just wanted to get on your radar. That's all I have
All right,
there.
thank you. Now let's move to item 8. I'm not sure, A and B could be combined, but I'm not sure.
Couldn't do C.
Yeah, C, I think we should let's combine the A and B, and then, is there any material you have to present on C?
No, just a discussion. We do this every year, but I can give a briefing on it to Ms. Luke.
All right, well, let's go ahead and combine all three, then I'll entertain a motion for action item 8A, B, and C combined.
We'll make that motion for you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Second? Mr. Watkins, seconded. Any discussions?
I do.
Yes.
The new CDC guidelines, we are allowing the parents to make the choices, right? For that, we're not having teachers ask students about their vaccination and getting involved in any of that, right?
Yeah, correct. I mean, we've taken the position from the get-go that it's a parent choice. Obviously, things get a little bit different if a student tests positive, and so there's some parameters that we require in that setting. But outside of a student testing positive, we've said it's a parent choice, and they know better than we do on what's in the best interest of their kid.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
We don't need our teachers practicing medicine.
Yes,
Nope.
we don't. We really don't need that, so.
Do the students get tested here, or do they have to do it on their own?
We don't test.
We don't test here.
don't test?
What we wind up doing, though, is if we have a positive case, oftentimes what will happen is either the sending school or the parent themselves will call us, and then we do a contact tracing within our setting, right? And the vast majority of positives that we've had throughout this experience has been students that tested positive off our campus. Transmission on our campus has been very, very low, and we know that because of the contact tracing we do once we find out from the parent that the student is positive.
Thank you.
Any further
If I could just quickly
Go
on
ahead.
item B, just so people are aware, we're asking that the employees that are asked to stay home because they've tested positive, that not be counted against their personal sick time. As a reminder, that was something that was in place prior to. This is just a continuation of that, a reaffirmation of that. So employees are being treated the same in this semester as employees have been treated similarly in past semesters. And then item C, as a reminder, the statute allows those teachers that are continuing teachers that score in the highest category to only have one observation, not two. That doesn't mean we still don't work with them, but it's a way for those teachers that are excelling per the observation to have a benefit by not having two formal observations.
Okay. I agree with that. Any further questions or discussions? We'll call for a vote then. Mrs. Boggs, would you?
Fleetum,
Aye.
Covington,
Aye.
Luke,
Aye.
That was good.
Lane,
Aye.
Boggs is an aye. Hart? Hart?
You're
Oops.
muted.
Sorry, we got a call. I had to turn it off. Aye.
Hobson?
Aye.
And Watkins?
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Where the heck is?
All righty. Moving to section 9, staff reports. Mr. or Dr. Wilson?
Just two quick items, Mr. President, members of the governing board. As a reminder, I believe it's the 30th. Is that right? For the East Valley? 31st. The 31st of this month is the East Valley School Board Consortium meeting in Tempe. We know that we participated when it was in Mesa. We hosted it here. If you are interested, please let Ms. Norris know so that then you don't have to do it tonight, but so that she can make sure that she communicates to Tempe our numbers so that we can be representative. So that's the 31st, and then as well, we're looking at probably that first meeting in January, fingers crossed, not January, February, fingers crossed, to hold it out at the Power Campus. So that you all can also get a tour of the aviation building at the same time. So we'll have the kind of building open and board meeting and aviation. We're hoping that first meeting in February. And that's all I have, unless you have questions for me.
Isn't there Wednesday? You're still doing that? Wednesday's meeting
Oh, yeah.
with the Gov.
Yes, those of you who have responded, the breakfast, reminder, it's 7:30, and it's the Sheraton, I believe, right up here, right on Alma School, I think, it's right up there, I think. But it's 7:30 and we have a table that's there, so just, we've registered you.
Sheraton or the Hilton?
No, it's not the Sheraton, the Hilton.
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 Down by the Longmore and the.
I believe
freeway?
that's where it is, yes, I believe so.
It's right up to 60, right?
Yes, exactly. So it's
But if we
7:30
go to-
Wednesday.
If we go to the Sheridan, Mr. Wilson, we just say that you sent us there?
Yeah, if you go to the Sheraton, just order lots of food and I'll come pick up the tab.
You better watch what you say.
No, no, I'm just kidding, I won't pick the tab up. Unless you have any questions for me, that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Koval. Do you have anything to add on your legal services report?
Yeah, sure. We got a notice of claim some time ago from Sherry Ray, who had been a warehouse worker, and she filed a complaint with the EEOC, and the deadline for her last remaining claim to file suit was December 28th. And as of this morning, she had not filed, so I believe we are not going to be sued by Sherry Ray.
All righty, thank you.
May I say one more?
You bet.
So the breakfast this Wednesday, 7:30 to 9, Sheraton Mesa Hotel at Wrigleyville West. So,
Riverview.
yeah, I gave you guys like,
We'd have been all over the
yes.
place.
So thank you all very much because that would have been,
No, yeah, I was just going by where it's been the last quite a while.
Not in Chicago.
so what I should have done before I said that, I should have actually asked them to talk about it because I apparently have no idea what I'm talking about. You can get there as early as 7 and get breakfast. The presentation starts at
Right.
7:30 to 9. So you can get there at 7, presentation 7:30, and that's it. Anything else on that one? Are we good? Okay.
Is it just off the 60 again?
All righty, quite a ways off the 60.
Yeah,
Quite a
it's-
ways
it's
off the
over
60.
Is that the one
Riverview.
that's downtown?
No, I think it's right over here.
It's by Riverview.
It's by
Right off the
the
two.
Sloan Park.
Yes.
Yes.
I totally got you in the wrong spot, like opposite side of,
Over near where we had graduation.
Correct.
where we had our
Okay.
completion.
It is, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's next door.
I was just thinking that because that's where it was before, so but I was wrong.
Oh, well.
It won't be the
All
last
righty.
time
It's
either.
not the last time.
So calendar, so our next meeting is, I don't know what the date is.
Kevin, do you have anything else you'd like to share?
I do not.
So our next regular meeting is the 24th.
24th, yes, here, and then hopefully that
And then
first.
the 31st is East Valley School Board Consortium in Tempe.
Tempe, I believe, yeah.
And then February 14th would be our first meeting.
Is that Valentine's Day?
Oh, the Hallmark
Now, in
holiday.
the past history, they've let us invite spouses and have a nice dinner
Well, wait a
on the
second.
14th.
I don't have a spouse, so I need to find
You can bring your boyfriend. You can bring your son.
Yes, you're coming just at the end, yes.
On the calendar, I like this idea of the open enrollment for students that you talked about that don't have a lot of credits, that we need to remove our, think from, not unless they're, well, we take care of, never mind, I won't say that. But I would like more information how we can do that. I like opening our campus up for those students that need us, so we can have those students that Mr. Lane is talking about here.
I think we
so
need
they
to
can
do a
give
little
information.
step at a time, rather
Yeah.
than just throw it wide open. I think
Yeah.
we do it
But-
in a,
Logical way, how we
Logical
could do it.
manner.
That's basically
So
what I'm saying.
we'll put that as an item of discussion. I'll be honest with you, Mrs. Doolin is the one who's spearheaded that conversation, and.
Shame on you.
So, no, I mean, but she's been absolutely right. We limit students' opportunities here for reasons that don't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're gonna be who we say we are, then we need to start looking for ways to bring more students, not fewer students in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to continue discussion also on the adult education tuition, the charges on that, reducing that.
Can I, just both of those real quick? One, we've already started looking at policies that we can revise and change. We're working on the new college catalog as we speak, because I found a lot of vagueness or areas that we could improve that will open it to more students and communicate that. And it will be logically stepped, because we'll roll that out with the new catalog that's coming out for the
22, 23.
school year.
Ms.
So-
Doolin, could you announce who you are so everybody knows?
I'm Rhonda Doolin, the Chief Academic Officer here at EVIT. And secondly, as far as the associate's tuition, we are working on that. We're crunching some, we're gathering some data. There's some data we needed first on costs depending on the program.
Right.
Before we come up with a template that would work for all.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I
that-
wasn't.
that is a process
I
we're
wasn't
working on.
considering it at the associate's degree. I was just considering adult education.
Well, it's the same kind of process that we have to do, because
Okay.
we're looking at the salaries of the nursing staff and what they're getting out there and what we're having to pay to get them in
Gotcha.
here. As far as also the clinical confinements for surge tech, nursing, EMT. So we have to look at all of those versus cosmetology. Those have some
Sure.
limitations now.
Okay, thank
So
you.
we're crunching those
Thank
numbers. It's gonna take a minute.
I bet you more.
Okay,
All righty. If there's nothing further, I'll move us to item 10B.
I so move?
Can I have a point of personal privilege first?
Yes.
So I realize it's almost an hour and we've gotten through 2 agendas and a lot of business. And I realize that Tammy works really hard, and I'm sure other folks work really hard administratively to get this agenda and all these exhibits together, which are really wonderful. And when we do this thing where we say, well, let's consolidate all of the items here, and it's a testament to all the hard work she's done. But I think it might seem like, oh gosh, we're disregarding it. And I just want her to feel appreciated for all the hard work she does in getting these agendas and documents together for us on a regular basis, really wonderfully. So it was just striking me that, gosh, I hope she feels appreciated, even as we say, well, let's just consolidate these
And
items for a bit.
she brings snacks.
yeah. Mr. Hobson, I'd like to add, I'm on a couple other boards where we don't get the advance notice of this. We don't get this stuff until the minute we walk in. So we're trying to read this stuff, and the fact that we get it early is great. But I'd also like to, I think we've got Mr. Watkins maybe, he didn't get to open up this meeting,
He
right?
didn't.
No?
And thank you for your service.
Yes. Enjoyed it.
Speech.
All righty. So we have a motion. Do we have a second to adjourn?
I'll second.
Let's have an acclamation vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear none.
Okay, congratulations.